The village still sleeps beneath a blanket of mist. It is the hour before dawn when the sky is neither night nor morning, but something in between. A time reserved for the quiet laborers of the world. Those whose hands shape the day long before it arrives. At the very edge of the hamlet, nestled beneath the old stone chapel and wrapped in ivy and moss, stands a humble bakery. Its thatched roof bows gently under the weight of dew. Smoke has not yet risen from its chimney, and the wooden shutters remain drawn against the chill. But within, all is beginning. The baker awakens not by the sun, but by rhythm, the ancient rhythm of daily bread. He rises slowly, not with haste, but with intention. The blanket is folded. The feet touch cold stone. A candle is lit. Its flame dances, casting golden hues along the rough interior walls. The room is spare, yet clean. A simple bed, a worn stool, a basin of water. Nearby, resting on a low table, lies a bundle of folded linen, his baking cloths, and beside it, his tools. A wooden paddle, worn smooth with years. A curved iron blade for slashing the loaves. And a brush made of twigs, bound tightly with twine. He washes his face in the basin, the water still cold from the night. Outside, the faintest call of a rooster stirs in the dark. But few else are awake. Only the baker. And perhaps, the stars. He wraps himself in a thick woolen tunic, pulls on his boots still dusted with flour from yesterday, and lifts the latch to the back door. It creaks softly, as it always does. The world is grey, mist curling at the edges of thatch and earth, and the air smells faintly of damp soil and distant wood smoke. The path to the bakehouse is short, no more than 20 paces, but it is sacred. Each morning he walks it with quiet reverence. Past the herb patch where thyme and sage grow wild. Past the stone wall with ivy creeping slow. Past the covered woodpile, where bundles of beech, ash, and oak rest in neat stacks, seasoned and dry. This morning, he selects oak. It burns long and hot, perfect for bread. He lifts the bundles, one by one, into a woven basket, and carries them to the heart of the bakery, the hearth. The oven is stone ancient, and slightly bowed with time. It was built by his grandfather's hands, and his before that. It is not just an oven, it is a keeper of memory. The baker kneels. He brushes yesterday's ashes into a pile and scoops them out into a copper pail. With his twig broom, he clears the hearth's floor, slow, circular movements, almost meditative. The scent of cold ash, faintly sweet, rises. Then, gently, he lays the oak. One by one, he builds the fire, small twigs first, then kindling, then the thicker logs. He places a twist of dried straw beneath, and strikes flint to steel. Once. Twice. A spark catches. The straw flares briefly, and smoke curls upward. Soon, the flames take hold. There is no rush. This is bread. And bread requires patience. He closes the iron door halfway, allowing the fire to draw properly. The heat will take time to fill the oven's belly, hours, perhaps, and only when the stones are hot enough will the baking begin. For now, he watches. The fire crackles softly. The golden glow warms the cold stone walls. Shadows begin to retreat. The bakery begins to breathe. As the fire grows, he turns to his workbench, a slab of heavy oak, darkened with age and oil, marked with flour prints from decades of dough. He wipes the surface with a damp cloth. No harsh scrubbing. Just a soft, circular motion. The cloth darkens slightly with flour and the memory of past loaves. Upon the bench he places a sack of flour, coarse, stone ground, slightly nutty in scent. This flour came from the miller 2 days ago, paid partly in coin, partly in bread. He scoops it gently, letting it fall through his fingers, testing its feel. Still dry, still light. Good. Beside the flour, he places the salt harvested from the distant coast, traded through the town market. And the yeast, a sour lump of leaven saved from yesterday's dough, wrapped in damp linen to keep it alive. A bowl of water drawn last night and left to rest stands nearby. Cool, still, ready. These are the ingredients. But bread is more than a recipe. It is a conversation between hands, flour, and time. The baker steps outside again. The air is lightning. A robin sings from the elder tree. The fields beyond are still silver with dew. He closes his eyes for a moment. The day ahead will be long but not difficult. Each step known. Each movement familiar. And yet, it never grows dull. There is peace in this routine. He listens. Far away, a door creaks open. A milkmaid's pail clinks against her hip. A dog barks once, then is silent. The village stirs, but only slightly. Most still rest. But the baker's fire burns now warm, bright, steady. Inside, the oven glows gently. He returns to his bench. The dough will soon be mixed. But this moment, before the kneading, before the rising, is his alone. A sacred pause in the rhythm of labor. A quiet prelude to the symphony of bread. Inside, the oven hums. He opens the door briefly, heat rushes out in a wave. The oak is nearly spent. The coals glow a soft orange. This is good. He adds a few more logs, knowing they'll burn down just in time for the first batch. He marks the temperature not with the thermometer, but by instinct, how long he can hold his hand near the stone, how the soot changes color, how the air smells. Outside the bakehouse, the sky is now lavender. Morning creeps silently along the rooftops. As the first strands of sunlight begin to unfurl over the village, the day slowly stirs to life. Yet even now, much remains hushed. The bakery hearth still crackles in its early glow, warming the stone chamber with steady breath. The scent of oak smoke now mingles with something subtler, the sharp, dry promise of flour. The baker stands at his workbench, sleeves rolled to the elbow, hands poised over the ingredients. But before dough can rise, the flour must be fresh. And so, his thoughts drift to the mill. The village mill sits at the far end of the brook, where the water runs deeper and quicker, fed by the hills beyond. It is here that grain is transformed into the soft white powder he knows by feel alone, heavier than air, but lighter than memory. Though today's flour was prepared yesterday, he remembers clearly how it came to be. In the quiet spaces of his morning, he allows himself to recall the ritual of milling, an act so old, so unchanged, that it might well be shared with his ancestors. The path to the watermill curves gently through the lower fields. The grass here is wet with dew, and tiny rivulets wind through the roots of elder trees. The mill itself is a large, low building of timber and stone, its roof sagging in places, though strong beneath the moss. The wheel turns slowly on its side, great wooden paddles creaking rhythmically with every pass. Water laps around its base, dark and reflective, like ink stirred with light. Inside, the air is thick with grain, a dry, dusty warmth. Sacks of barley, wheat, and rye lean against walls, tied with rope and marked with symbols for weight and quality. There are no windows here, only slits in the walls for air, through which beams of morning sunlight break and filter into the dust like slow-moving ghosts. The miller, a quiet man with thick hands and a slow step, greets with a nod. Words are few between them. They speak the language of shared habit. The baker passes him a sack of last season's wheat, golden, sun-cured, dry to the bite. The miller lifts it, feels its weight, and nods again. With a heave, he empties the grain into the stone hopper. The great millstones, one fixed, one turning, begin their grinding. The sound is deep, heavy, constant. Like the breathing of some large, old creature beneath the earth. As the stones move, the wheat breaks. First coarse, then finer. The bran separates. The germ, crushed. And what remains is sifted slowly into a sack below. Pale flour gathers like snowfall. The baker lifts a handful. He rubs it between his fingers. It is smooth, dry, and faintly sweet. Good flour. Honest flour. The kind that needs no additions. He trades a coin and a loaf. The same ritual as always. Then, sack slung across one shoulder, he returns to the bakery. Back at the bench, the light has shifted. Golden now, softening the corners of the room. The fire has ebbed to glowing coals. The time has come to mix. The flour, his own, ground just the day before, is poured into a wide wooden bowl. A cloud rises and settles again. There is silence now, except for the distant sounds of the village slowly waking. He adds salt, a handful, no more. Harvested from coastal rocks, rough in grain, white as chalk. Then, the leaven, a lump of dough kept alive from the previous day's bake, resting in a bowl wrapped in damp linen. He tears off a piece, the scent sour but clean, like green apples and fresh cheese. Lastly, the water. Drawn from the well before dawn, still cool from the earth. He pours slowly, stirring as he goes. With each addition, the mixture changes, softens, thickens, resists. Then, with both hands, he begins to knead. There is something ancient in the movement. Push. Fold. Turn. Push. Fold. Turn. The dough is sticky at first, clinging to fingers and bowl. But he does not rush. He leans into it. Works it slowly, rhythmically, pressing out air, building strength. The scent of flour and water blends with the faint aroma of wood smoke. Light from the hearth flickers across the curve of the dough, now smoother, more elastic. He does not speak. The dough does not speak. But in the rhythm, there is a kind of understanding. After 10 minutes, it begins to change. The surface tightens. It stretches without tearing. A sheen begins to form. This is what he waits for. Not perfection, but readiness. A stage that cannot be timed, only known. He shapes the dough into a round and places it in a floured cloth-lined bowl. Covers it gently with linen. And leaves it to rise. A moment of stillness. With the dough resting, the bakery grows quiet again. He washes his hands in the basin, the flour swirling into clouded water. He wipes the bench clean with soft strokes of a cloth. He tidies his tools. Folds the sack. Brushes the floor. Outside, the sun has fully risen. The village begins to stir in earnest. Distant voices call from farm to barn. Hooves clatter softly on the lane. A child laughs. But within these walls, all is still. All is patient. The dough rests, swelled by unseen motion. The fire waits, glowing and steady. And the baker, for a brief moment, sits. Not from exhaustion, but from peace. He listens not for sound, but for silence. Bread will come. It always does. But for now, it is enough to wait. By mid-morning, the village of Eldwyk breathes with quiet life. Gone is the hush of dawn, yet still far from the bustle of midday. It is a soft, unfolding hour when the world shakes off sleep slowly, like a blanket slid from the shoulders. The baker steps outside into this gentle rhythm, his dough now resting, rising softly beneath linen inside. The warm air greets him like an old friend. The sky is a pale blue, streaked with thin wisps of white. Chickens peck in the yard. A cat slinks between barrels near the bakery wall. Bees hum lazily among the flowers bordering the path. He carries a small basket now not of bread, but of errands. There is barley to trade for apples, and perhaps a wedge of cheese if the cheesemaker has any fresh. Houses village in motion. The village center is a wide clearing where buildings lean inward like old companions. Timber-framed houses with whitewashed walls, roofs thick with straw and moss. Smoke curls from chimneys, winding lazily into the morning sky. Children chase chickens through muddy lanes, their laughter light as linen in the wind. An old woman with a basket of herbs nods to the baker as he passes. Her fingers are stained green from mint and yarrow. At the edge of the square, a blacksmith hammers softly, not in the booming rhythm of war-making, but in the gentle pace of repair. A horseshoe, perhaps. Or a nail for a broken stool. The anvil rings a high, metallic note that carries through the village like a bell. The baker stops by the well. A cooper is there, rinsing a barrel. They exchange nods, no need for words. Both men are familiar figures tied to the pulse of daily life. These people are not grand, nor their tasks glorious. But they are the threads from which the fabric of the village is woven, soft, strong, and sure. Red apple barter and exchange. At the market stall, a young girl tends to baskets of fruit and turnips. She is no older than 10, yet her eyes are steady. The baker hands her a small bundle barley and an old token, and she selects 4 apples, placing them carefully in his basket. One of the apples has a small bruise, which she replaces without a word. Precision matters, even in simplicity. Further down the lane, the cheesemaker's hut leans slightly to the left, as though dozing. Inside, wheels of cheese rest on shelves like golden suns. The cheesemaker, a broad man with nimble hands, grins as the baker enters. "Still warm, is it?" he asks, nodding toward the bakery. "Warm enough," the baker replies. They speak a few minutes of milk yields and mice, of flour sacks and rain. It is not gossip. It is communion. The baker leaves with a small round of cheese wrapped in cloth and tied with twine. Its scent is grassy and sharp. It will be eaten with the second batch of bread, once the crust cools and the crumb settles. Rooster people at their labors. As he walks back through the village, he sees others at work. A boy scrapes manure from the path, whistling as he goes. A mother hangs linen on a line, her baby slung across her back. A man mends a fence with slow, practiced movements, hammer in one hand, mug of ale in the other. A pair of girls sit beneath a tree, threading flowers into each other's hair. They hum softly. A tune passed down from mothers and grandmothers before them. In the fields beyond, workers bend low among the rows, pulling weeds, turning soil. Harvest is still months away, but the land must always be tended. The baker knows them all not by name, perhaps, but by motion. By the way they move and live and work. And they know him as the one whose bread greets their mornings, fills their baskets, feeds their tables. He is not wealthy. He is not famous. But he is needed. And that, in this world, is enough. Bird midday nears. The sun now reaches higher, casting short shadows across the cobblestones. A soft breeze carries the scent of baking, the sour and the sweet blending into something ancient and irresistible. The baker feels it, even here in the market. The pull. His loaves are nearly ready. He returns along the path, past the herb garden, past the smithy, past the lane where chickens scatter again at his approach. A boy runs past with a wooden sword, shouting as though in battle. A dog barks once, then curls beneath a bench to sleep again. Back at the bakehouse, he steps inside. The warmth is familiar, like stepping into memory. The dough, now swollen with breath, waits beneath its cloth. It is time. The sun dips low beyond the trees, casting long golden beams across the village paths. Shadows stretch and soften, and a hush settles once again, not the stillness of sleep, but of fulfillment. The day is nearly done. Inside the bakery, the fire is nothing more than embers, now a quiet glow resting in the hearth. The warm stones hold the last breath of heat, radiating softly like the final exhale of a long, peaceful sigh. The bread has cooled. The crusts are firm. The loaves are aligned neatly on the table, their shapes gentle and imperfect, like stones in a riverbed, natural, simple, and whole. Bread to share. The baker selects 2 loaves. One will go to the chapel, to be offered. Another, to a widow at the far edge of the village, whose son fell ill last week and could not tend to his fields. These deliveries are not duties, they are part of the rhythm. He wraps the loaves in cloth, places them into a basket, and steps out into the amber light of the lane. The air is warm, but touched with the faintest coolness, the first whisper of night. Children's laughter drifts through the village like smoke. Chickens begin to return to their coops. A pair of boys chase a hoop past the herb garden, the will bouncing along the dirt, followed by their quiet giggles. The baker walks slowly. The ground is soft. The scent of evening blossoms, jasmine and rosemary, mingles with smoke from cooking hearths. At the chapel, he leaves the loaf at the door. He does not knock. The gesture speaks on its own. At the widow's cottage, a soft knock brings a pause. She appears, wrapped in a shawl, her hair loose, her eyes tired but kind. She thanks him without words, simply by touching his arm, and disappears again. And so he returns home, lighter than he left. Candle a simple meal. The last light pours into the bakery through the open shutters, painting the stone walls in gold and rose. The baker sits at the wooden table. There, laid out in humble grace, is his meal, a piece of bread, broken, not sliced. A wedge of cheese, soft and slightly crumbling. Half an apple, its skin blushed and sweet. And a small cup of cool water, drawn from the well. He eats slowly, thoughtfully. He savors not the flavors alone, but the work they represent. Each bite contains hours of labor, of waiting, of quiet prayer. It is not indulgence. It is presence. When the meal is done, he wipes the table, folds the cloth, returns the cup to the shelf. Broom evening chores. There are small tasks left, and he tends to them as one would care for a sleeping child. He sweeps the flour from the floor, gathers the stray crumbs, rinses the bowls and sets them to dry. The tools are placed back into their place: the blade, the brush, the peel. The fire's last glow dims, but he does not stir it. It has done its work. Outside, the first stars appear. Milky Way reflections by candlelight. In his quarters, a single candle flickers. The shadows it casts are gentle, dancing along the wall with the same rhythm as memory. The baker sits on his stool. In his lap, a small leather-bound book. Not for writing, but for keeping scraps of recipes, dates of harvests, notes from his grandfather's hand. The ink has faded, but the meaning remains. He turns a page. And another. Stops at a sketch, a diagram of an old oven. And smiles. These things were passed to him not by wealth, but by care. By time. They are not ancient treasures. But they endure. He sets the book aside. Extinguishes the candle. And for a long moment, simply sits in the dark listening to the night. Crescent moon. The village sleeps. Outside, the village quiets. One by one, shutters close. Lanterns flicker, then vanish. A dog gives a final bark, then settles. The forge has gone silent. Even the mill, whose wheel turns day and night, seems slower now, as though yawning. The moon rises gently above the rooftops, spilling its silver light across the fields. And within the bakery, all is still. The loaves will be eaten in the morning. The oven will be kindled again. But for now, all that matters is rest. The baker lies in his small bed. Pulls the woolen blanket over his chest. And breathes not deeply, not dramatically, but peacefully. For today, he has done his part. Tomorrow will come, as it always does. And bread will rise again. The bakery is now filled with warmth, not the raw heat of fire alone, but the quiet, swelling heat of transformation. Outside, the village hums in soft rhythm, but within these walls, Something ancient is about to begin. The dough has rested. It has risen not with speed, but with time. Slowly, patiently, it has drawn in breath from the air, strength from the hands that kneaded it, and life from the leaven passed down through countless mornings before this one. The baker returns to the bench, wiping his hands on a linen cloth. He lifts the fabric that covers the bowls, and there they are, round, smooth, risen. A faint sourness lingers in the air, not unpleasant, but honest. Alive. He touches one gently with the back of his fingers. It springs back slowly. Ready. Baguette bread shaping the loaves. With slow and practiced movements, he lifts one round of dough and places it onto the floured work surface. He folds it inward once, then again. He turns it, shapes it into a tight ball. Then repeats the same with the others, each handled with care, with silence, as though not to wake a sleeping child. The loaves vary slightly, not all perfectly round, not all even in weight. But that is as it should be. These are not loaves for kings. These are loaves for life. He sets them, shaped and sealed, into wooden baskets lined with floured cloth. The seams rest downward. A short second rest begins. 20 minutes, perhaps. Just enough for the dough to settle into itself. He sits nearby and sips water from a clay cup. The scent of the oven now fills the room. Earthy. Dry. Fierce. He prepares the peel, the long-handled paddle he will use to slide the loaves into the fire. Nearby, a small iron blade rests, curved like a crescent moon. This, he uses to score the tops of the loaves, not for decoration, but for purpose. A way to guide the dough as it expands in the heat. When the resting is done, he flips each loaf gently onto the peel. With quick flicks of the blade, he slices the surface 1, 2, 3 swift lines. Now, they are ready. Fire the oven. The oven door creaks open. A wave of heat flows out, dry, but not scorching. The flames have long since died down, replaced by glowing coals and white-hot stone. He brushes the hearth with his twig broom, clearing ash and embers to the side. With steady hands, he slides the loaves in, one by one. Each lands with a soft thud on the hot stone. Within seconds, the crust begins to form. The air changes. Something begins. He closes the oven door, seals it, and waits. This is the hour of stillness. Nothing more can be done. There is no flame to control now, no knobs to turn. The oven holds its own low heat, held within stone and memory. What happens inside is unseen. The baker wipes the bench clean, tidies the baskets, folds the cloths. Then, he sits. Not out of idleness, but of trust. The loaves will speak when they are ready. Outside, birds call to one another from trees just beyond the wall. A neighbor leads a goat past the bakery, its hooves clicking gently against the stones. The sound is oddly soothing. Inside, the oven breathes. Candle a blessing in silence. The baker rises, slowly, and steps into the small room beside the hearth. It is a room few enter, a chapel of sorts, though it holds no altar, no gold, no priest. On a wooden shelf sits a carved figure, not of a saint, but of an old man kneeling with a sheaf of wheat. A candle burns beside it. On the wall, a dried sprig of rosemary, tied with faded ribbon. He kneels before it, not in display, but in habit. And he whispers. Not words of request, not grand prayers, but thanks. Thanks for the grain that grew in dry earth. Thanks for the water drawn from deep roots. Thanks for the leaven that carried yesterday into today. It is a small ritual, but sacred. Baguette bread, the moment of reveal. After what feels like a quiet age, the time comes. He lifts the latch and opens the oven door. A wave of rich, caramel warmth rushes out. He leans into it, inhaling deeply. The scent of crusted wheat, of browned edges, of something complete. With his peel, he slides the loaves out, one by one. Their crusts are golden, some deeper, some lighter. The scores have split open in graceful arcs. A soft crackle echoes through the air as they cool. The music of bread. He sets them gently on a wooden rack. No touching. Not yet. The crumb inside still settles, still finishes its quiet alchemy. And so, again, he waits. Bread, a table set for later. Near the window, he prepares the wooden table. He lays a cloth across its surface woven from flax, simple and clean. He places a knife, not sharp, but sturdy. A plate. A round of cheese. A single apple. This is not for a feast. It is for wholeness. For balance. The first loaf will be broken, not sliced. Shared not in hunger, but in gratitude. Sun behind small cloud, midday passes. The village is now fully alive. Children chase hoops through the lanes. A wheelwright shouts for assistance. A dog barks, then settles. The forge bellows, the mill wheel turns. Life carries forward. But inside the bakery, time stretches. The loaves cool. Their crusts settle. Their hearts finish rising. The baker does not speak. He does not rush. He simply waits. And in that waiting, there is peace. The sky is deep blue now, starlit and still. The village rests. The people sleep. The fires are out. And yet, something lingers in the air, a warmth, a memory, a presence. Not just from the day that passed, but from the days before it. And the many to come. The baker, wrapped in quiet dreams, does not know this moment. But the bakehouse does. The stones remember. The flour in the air settles like time itself. For bread, though humble, is never only about sustenance. It is about connection. Memory. And the quiet legacy passed hand to hand, loaf to loaf. Sheaf of rice, what the bread carries. Each loaf made today was more than flour and water. It held stories. The flour came from a field planted by hands now gone, farmers whose children walk the lanes today. The leaven began months ago, passed from batch to batch, a living memory of every bake that came before. Even the fire carried legacy, lit with the same kindling pattern, stoked with the same tools, warming the same stones that have baked bread for decades, perhaps longer. And the hands that shape the dough, they too are part of this long line. A line of bakers who rose before dawn, who waited in silence, who tended fire and dough as if tending a child. There is no monument to these people, no scroll of names. But in every bite of bread, they remain. Older adult grandfather's hands. The baker often thinks of his grandfather, whose hands were never still. He used to hum as he needed, not a tune, really, just a thread of sound that pulsed with the dough. His stories were always quiet, told not at the hearth, but in the way he scraped the table clean, or tapped the loaves to check for readiness. Listen for the hollow sound, he'd say. It means the bread is finished. Not perfect finished. The baker had once asked him how he knew when the bread was truly good. His grandfather had smiled. If it feeds someone's body without noise, and their soul without knowing, that's good bread. Now, years later, the baker follows the same rhythm. And sometimes, when alone, he hums. Scroll the wisdom of simplicity. People in the village speak often of kings and wars, of taxes and laws passed down from high towers far away. But here, in Eldwyk, it is not parchment or coin that holds the village together. It is simplicity. A clean cup of water. A shared loaf. A bowl left by a neighbor's door. A small cloth over a fresh loaf with a note, for tomorrow. In these gestures, there is peace. And in peace, there is continuity. Bread does not demand celebration. It simply returns again and again, like breath, like sunlight, like sleep. And those who make it do not seek fame. They seek warmth. And warmth, in turn, spreads. Bowl with spoon the future loaves. Tonight's bread will be tomorrow's meal. The crumb will soften. The crust will firm. It will be sliced, torn, dipped into stew, or warmed over a fire. It will travel in satchels to fields, to mills, to quiet woodland paths, and a portion of it, perhaps just a scrap, will become the leaven for the next day's dough. Just as yesterday's bread helped today's rise. There is no end to this. Only return. The baker does not think of legacy in grand terms. He thinks of it in spoons of flour, in folded cloth, in the way a loaf rests in the palm of a hand, not too light, not too heavy. Just right. A silent promise. The bakery, dark and warm, holds the quiet promise of morning. Though no fire burns, the hearth is not cold. Though no dough rises, the bowls are not empty. They are waiting. Waiting not for greatness, but for care. Outside, a breeze rustles the leaves. An owl calls once from a distant tree. The stars wheel gently in the night sky, as they have done for millennia. And within this humble bakehouse, in this small village of no particular fame, lies a truth older than kings and longer than war, that bread, like love, is made in silence. and that in giving it, we remain.